talking about how Ed is a very productive ideator. There's seldom a call where we don't talk about a new service or product idea, and today is no different. But I wanted to bring this conversation back to what your goal is, Ed, and this is something we've agreed we would discuss this publicly. So let's dive into that. Also, the uncertainties and the questions that come up in that. And Ed started a quest recently, which is going on YouTube to develop an audience. Now, for those of you that have followed us for a few episodes, you know that audience has a very specific meaning for us, right? It's a person that has given you their contact information and explicit permission to contact them. That's what audience is. So it's not views on YouTube. It's not subscribers on YouTube. It's subscribers on your newsletter. So Ed, give us a little bit of context. Why did you start working on this quest?
Right. I mean, strategically, for the last couple of years, my focus or the goal in our language has been to generate revenue. But what it does, if you focus only on revenue, is that you're in a constant cycle of generating revenue. So you're mostly in the here and now and today. So that means if you would ask me how much I'm going to make a year from now or 3 months from now or 6 months from now, I don't know, because I have always been just looking for a client and then get a client and then serve the client and then look for another client. So I have no idea. Some seasons are good, some seasons are bad, some seasons are difficult.
And that also is similar to consultants that pretty much need to do the same, right? They go from customer to customer, and when there's no customer, there's no revenue, right? It's exactly that kind of dynamic, right?
Exactly. So now, after couple of years of working on my expertise, I have come to a point where I can predictably say that like how much I'm going to make 3 months from now, 6 months from now, because of the recurring revenue model that I have implemented. This gives me a breathing space to now focus instead on building an audience, the thing that has been missing right from the beginning, at least in the ideal online business scenario.
So tell us a little bit more. Why did you come to that decision point in your business where you said, okay, now it's time to build an audience? Because you were able to find customers before. So the question might be, like, you already have the ability to find customers and do the sales and deliver the service. Why do you want an audience?
This is classic. I mean, almost anyone who's an expert would not have difficulty in getting customers. I mean, there might be difficulty in volumes, but when people talk to you and you're an expert in your field, I mean, that's pretty much a half a customer or a customer, like depend on the closing rates and stuff. But the whole equation of an online business, I always wanted to be an online business, is you build an audience, then you find out what they need, create what they need so that it sells itself to them, and that feeds the cycle of online business. And I found myself in the same cycle that my clients, who I help relieve this cycle from, which is sell your hours, even though I don't officially sell my hours, but it is indirectly selling my hours, because if I'm not present in my business, it doesn't work. The clients don't get served, and
you don't have a revenue system that goes on without you. Like, you need to be in the business in order to get revenue. So you're effectively also selling your time.
Yeah, but that's only one part of the equation. The second part, my personal strength. I have been in product development thanks to you, since I joined your team 6 years ago. And I found that I have like natural talents towards coming up with new ideas, coming up with new solutions, working with technology, combining technology to come up with solution. Now, and with that, the curse side of that gift is I have way too many solution ideas than the problem ideas that I have. Now, in order to figure out problems, the real problems, you need to be talking to people. One solution to that could be I'm talking to my clients. That's fine, but I'm like the business model and the revenue involved. I work with like few clients a year, and sometimes they're dramatically different from each other. Like their businesses are different, their needs are different, and the solution
So you're
customization.
basically doing consultant, right?
Pretty
Customized
much.
services.
Yes, pretty much. So if I would come to a point where I'm having like 4 or 5 different clients who are having exactly the same needs, have exactly the same solution, I could productize it. But what happened in reality with me is that like I have a really good idea. It's market tested. People pay me to implement it. So it's validated, definitely. However, it's still not productizable because it still fit only one person. And then I don't have an audience or a brand message where I could attract more exactly the same type of people.
So
This
you're
is
at the point in your business where you go like, hey, I see some trends, I see things that a lot of people might need. I need to have a pipeline of people with these needs coming to me, right? And
exactly
that's what you mean by audience in this case. So people with a
certain
specific
need.
set of problems or needs that you can help them with. And this
Exactly.
is very important. So in chapter 5 of the 48-hour book method, we talk about this specific topic, which is who will you help, right? Like
Right.
who am I helping? So how did you come to that realization that, okay, there's this avatar, there's this one would say standard set of business challenges or goals that I can help with, and of course people with those goals and challenges. Like how did you define that?
Um, well, in theory, I always knew there's a concept of customer avatar, and I teach people and I help my clients implement it. But when it comes to my own business, it was mainly a decision rather than a realization. So it was a matter of time when I decide to, okay, no, 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 focus. Uh, be okay with saying no, at least emotionally, to other potential customer avatars and focus on one. And personally, for a person like me, this has been one of the most difficult
Can you walk us through that?
activities.
Like, because that's a very important statement there, and a lot of people out there listening to us today will definitely have gone through the same, right? Because there's this fear that, okay, if we focus on one customer, then we're giving up on all of these other customers, right? Which are
Yeah,
necessarily more than the one you're focusing on.
yeah,
Well, not exactly. That's why we talk about audience. But talk us through that process. How did it go for you?
yeah. So in order for, I mean, you get paid to solve somebody else's problems. Now, in order to solve somebody else's problem, you need to identify the problem. Now, a problem can be, I like to say precisely rather than broadly, can be precisely divided into three distinct elements. Element number one is a particular type of person. The element number two is wants something. He has a or she has a need or desire.
A goal,
There's
right?
something that that person wants. And the third one is that person cannot have it because otherwise they won't be in the market. And the definition of market is people with problems. They wouldn't be still listening to you if you're talking about particular topic. That thing is they cannot have it for some reason. So all these three things
There's a
combined together,
challenge or
there's a
an
particular
obstacle.
challenge. Yes. Now, any one change in these three of the elements would make a completely different solution for that person. So in other words, a person in a certain situation needs one kind of solution. Same person in a different situation would need a different solution, or a different person in the same solution would need a different solution. The same problem would need a different solution. So you see, it opens up a multiple permutation combination of solutions. So you will come up with, let's say you keep yourself broad in terms of choosing that person. Hey, I want to help, let's say, anyone. I want to create an online course for anyone who want to lose weight. Okay, the anyone is a very dangerous word here because anyone could be a woman
Could
who
be
want
an
to.
athlete that needs to lose weight for a particular competition. Could be a person who's struggling with diabetes and needs to lose weight while being diabetic.
Right.
It could be a person that just wants to look good on the beach. I mean, it's summer now, and people will want to wear trunks or a swimsuit that makes them look good. And obviously, these are all totally different needs, goals, motivations, and challenges.
Exactly. And then not to even mention the medical needs. So there are some people who would need to lose weight because the doctor asked them, otherwise they will die out of whatever reason. So the solution, so this is the problem that happens when you don't choose. And now that's the logical side of
And
things.
in order to choose, so we've talked about these different aspects, right? Like the person, the challenge, and the goal that they have. But in order for us to understand this, we need to first decide, okay, this is the type of person we want to serve.
Yeah.
Right. And you made that decision. Even
Right.
recently, we've talked a little bit about that in one of the other episodes, which was to serve somebody who wants to create residual income or recurring income in their business without them having to sell their time in order to generate that income. Yeah. So defining the avatar is very important, but then we need to understand, okay, but what is their goal, right? And in this case, you defined because of the interviews that they want to generate recurring income. And also, what are the challenges that they are facing? Because one of the things in the 48-hour book method is that you can ask them what they want. They probably have a very clear picture of what they want. I mean, there's the SMIQ, and we discovered that a little bit better through interviews, but they probably have that. And they probably know what they struggle with, which then opens the door for us to come up with solutions, right? But we need to understand what those are, what they want, and what they struggle with. And that's something that you did using the SMIQ, which is chapter 6 in the book, where we go through what it is and how to implement it and why it's useful, what to expect from it, etc. But walk us through that. Like, how did you go about creating this understanding? Okay, if I want to help a business owner who wants to start generating recurring income without having to, basically sell their time in order to do it, then what are the challenges, what are the obstacles and the objections that they have? How did you get to that?
Yeah. So the first phase of selecting the avatar for me was, well, first convert every consultation session or discussions I was having with potential clients or even clients into their own customer avatar. Now, by the way, same client would describe two different problems, and that will become two technically different avatars. So it is an activity. It's a discipline that I implemented. So
you basically transformed every customer interaction into an SMIQ potential interview, right?
In a way, but more focus on the strategy sessions that I was having. So the strategy sessions with clients. So basically, it gives me two kind of feedback. One is in-person feedback of my whatever I'm saying to them. Second is their purchase. So my understanding of their problem based on what they describe, like in the mental map I was making, empathy map I was making, if they buy it, then that becomes a potential real customer avatar that I can focus on. Now, I created a couple of them, those ones where people paid me. So I prioritize them more than the ones where people
basically you were testing a service already with in those strategy sessions.
Yeah. And mentally, I made a note that I want to create a productized service for them instead of just like a one-off service, in the sense that I help them, but then I replicate this work to other clients. So another criteria that I considered was it easy for me to deliver service to this client? Is it profitable? Is it the work that I would enjoy doing? Are these the type of clients that I enjoy working with? And it was a tick mark for all of those for me to select the customer avatar that I chose.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we talk about also in the book. We talk about consider the topic you want to write about, or in this case, what is the type of service you want to build, find the right audience. So understand if what you're offering fits the people that you're talking to. And this process goes through, or we go through this process in what we call the SMIQ survey process, but also then the empathy map and the story map process. And this going on YouTube to develop an audience is one aspect of taking that productization forward, right? Like you had those conversations, you started having this hypothesis, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that. And one of the things that we talk about is that the content will bring your customers to you, right? Like as you start writing the book, your customers will start finding you because you're solving problems that relate to them, that they have struggled with, objections. You're helping them tackle objections that they have, right? And in chapter 7, we talk about, presenting solutions. Basically, we talk about how your audience will tell you what the book needs to be about because they are telling you what they're struggling with, and then you can write those down. And the same for you, which is you're providing a service, and we can apply the same method there because they tell you what they struggle with, and then you productize and you make the offer, and you get their feedback, their immediate feedback as to whether that service even fits what they think would be helpful for them. Now let's go back to YouTube and talk about what's your strategy then to develop that audience, instances of that avatar that you've selected to develop that audience on YouTube. What are you trying to achieve, and how are you going to go about it on YouTube?
Now, this is an area that goes in a little bit of complex side because I have a lot of experience with people creating content and in the content marketing world, not as a content marketer myself, but strategizing others' content and things like that. So it's pretty much the way I like to think is like an Inception movie where there's a dream within a dream. So I am going on YouTube. Now, I have not built any audience on YouTube before, so it's a new experience. So there's this customer avatar who's me, Ed, who has to go through certain steps or create a curriculum for himself to learn YouTube. So I have a framework in mind, 48-hour book method, that I use to create my own curriculum. Now, what will I talk about once I go on YouTube? The content of YouTube. I cannot talk about like these things that I'm like, for example, how to create a YouTube channel and stuff, because it will attract me, not Kate.
This is a very good point, right? Like the content you create is there to attract your avatar, right? Even though it's your quest, it's Ed figuring out how to develop an audience on YouTube. That's what we talk about here. Right. When you go there to Ed's channel, you're going to talk about helping Kate generate recurring revenue in their business.
Yeah. So think of it as a T. So there's a T sign, a line drawn in a T shape, where the first line, horizontal line, is my journey, my journey to build a YouTube audience or audience from YouTube. And then what content I will put on YouTube is the vertical line, which is Kate's customer avatar, focused on the needs and desires of someone who want to build an e-learning business.
And now comes the really good question, which is, of course, oh, great, I'll go on YouTube, but what am I going to produce? What kind of content am I going to generate? Now, we already know from what you just said that you're going to produce content for Kate to help Kate. But what is that content? Where did it come from? How did you come up with the idea of developing an audience on YouTube, and also what content would fit that audience?
Right. So we have let's call it a topic idea. So I've got a broad view of what Kate wants based on what she's actually paid me pretty good money to solve, like a problem that she's paid me to solve for her. So I know I can bet my money on that there's a need, at least in the market.
It's a proven need. Yes.
It's exactly. A proven need. Now, what I need to do is I need to test whether this is a need that I can talk about and attract people, or there's a danger here. This could be one of those needs where people would say, hey, we don't want to know anything, just do it for us. I don't want to watch any video. And I think this is
we one just of the want to buy your time, right?
Exactly. So I have a broad understanding that if I talk about technology the way other reviewers or YouTubers talk about, it will only attract people like me, not Kate, because Kate never watch review videos.
She's not interested in the technology. She's interested in something else.
Exactly. So the main motto is to take the tech and the marketing out of her way. How can I simplify, minimize, declutter, these two things for her so that
Okay, so but declutter and simplify is your solution,
yeah.
right? But you came to that conclusion through the SMIQ. So what were the indications? How
Actually,
did you come to that conclusion?
interactions. So this is where the daily interactions working with client comes into play. So when I would let's say, for example, pass on them a tutorial, or I help them set up a home video studio, um, they struggle with making all the tech and equipment work. And that initially I thought that, I mean, you just have to Google and figure out, like, right, all of those things. But no, I mean, this is overwhelming. This is like too many things, different kind of ports.
Because they're worried with different things, of course.
Right. And in my opinion, I found the simplest setup for them, the most essential setup for them to go on creating podcasts and go on creating videos for themselves and stuff. But it was a challenge in a way for them. And then I shared a couple of tutorials and videos, but it didn't really help. So I realized, like, okay, so just because I have my YouTube feed full of these tutorials and stuff, it doesn't mean that this is how everyone else lived their life. Somebody could be totally opposite.
So let me translate this. So you thought, okay, I could write and produce videos around these tutorials, how to set up your home video studio, etc. But then you realize, but wait a minute, this is not what Kate wants, right? Through the daily interaction, you realize this is not what she's struggling with. What she's struggling with is something else, is how to build a business around the content she already has. She does not want to care about the details of technically producing that content.
Exactly. So in my content, for example, in this case, I would be emphasizing, and I'm thinking out loud, I haven't thought of that before until we talked about it right now, emphasizing on the importance of building a home video setup rather than hiring a videographer every time you need to record something. So that's the kind of content that I would be focusing on, that like, hey, the strategy stuff, the strategy, not the technique or not the implementation, that you need a setup. You need to book yourself on guest podcasts. That's the easiest way to generate traffic if you're new to online world, and if you don't want to deal with SEO and all of these technical work. You just want to deal with humans. This is how you deal with humans.
So what you're talking about is you're gonna write and produce videos for Kate, the avatar, on how she can develop an online course business. Not the details, the technical platform, what tools to use, etc., but rather how to set it up as a system, right? Like, be ready to record,
once it's set up.
Get these traffic strategies in place, start developing your audience, which is exactly what you're trying to do, and showing that as an example, right?
Yeah, and that brings me to the discussion which kickstarted this video. Just before this video we were starting, I came up with a new idea that, like, look, I have seen my clients, and especially people who are not $1 million businesses, like at least people below them, struggling to take on or wear the hat of CEO of their business. So there's definitely a clear need. And because of that, they struggle with bringing in focus on their business. So any new opportunity, any new idea is a potential totally distractor from everything else they were building. And I'm guilty of that myself. I mean, this is the nature of the beast when you work alone, and you rely on your memory rather than a system in running a business. So that opens up this product idea that, like, hey, Vasco, I mean, I know for me, you're equivalent to the CEO. Like, you bring the focus every time I need focus. So why not we create something like the CEO coaching program or something where we help my clients. It's more like a masterminding. Like we meet them on a regular basis so that they stay sharp and focus on what they need.
Okay, so that's So the productization idea came to mind, right? Like coaching the CEO of a particular content business. All right, okay, cool. But now let's bring that back to the YouTube quest. Like, how did these two come together, and why it matters to discuss one in the context of the YouTube quest?
Right. So that pretty much, that's one of the values that I can bring in their life is leadership through clarity. So help them get clear on what
And
they
that's
should
your
want.
assumption, by the way. We don't yet have paid services on that, right? Like this is,
True.
we are now building an idea. Okay, so we see a gap in the market, we see the need. Now we need to build our avatar, understand what they struggle with, and shape this offer
Right.
based on what they struggle with, the challenges, the obstacles that they are
Yeah.
aiming for.
So let's not go into the offer yet, because there's the process that we have to intentionally talk with them about this. But there's an educated guess behind choosing this topic as like, hey, help them get clarity. This is one of my belief based on my consulting work is uh, one of the biggest value I, as a consultant, add to my clients is to bring in clarity. They hire me to do their homework or their research. They hire me to give them the right decisions or help them make right decisions based on permutation combinations of uh, different choices they can make. And me as a consultant guide them that if you make this choice, this will happen. If you make this
So,
choice, this will happen.
okay, that's your assumption. Now
Right.
we're talking about YouTube, the YouTube quest, and building an audience. So one of the chapters we have in the book, it's also episode 22 of this YouTube series that you can go back and listen to. Is like, okay, now it's time to experiment. Now we need to transform this assumption. It's an educated guess based on experience and observations, but now we need to turn this assumption into something we can test, right? We need to build something that validates that, yes, this indeed tackles a problem in the market.
Yeah.
And we only know that when the customer takes an action, right? They
Yeah.
either opt in, or they give you money, or they set up a strategy meeting with you, or whatever, right? Like, we need to set up that experiment. So let's use the YouTube channel and figure out what would be the experiment. So how can we validate this?
So one of the challenges immediately come to my mind is that I have never heard my clients say that they need to be the CEO. So even though that is a need, they never it's not a surface need. It's not a need which is obvious for them. So it's more like maybe a real problem rather than a symptom, and like the clients can only tell you symptoms, right? So what can I do to find out what's the symptom that describe this challenge? On a surface level, it sounds like, yes, they are overwhelmed, they're stressed, they have anxieties related to tech marketing world or that, but we can do better. So I think that the first a potential idea of a team could be taking charge or taking leadership in your own one-man team, or, or something like that, and then create an SMIQ, kind of a survey, the empathy survey method, to find out what are their challenges in their own words.
So let me take one step back, because that, as you are describing it, if the solution is, and you're right about the solution, that they need help learning to become and accept they are the CEO of a business, not just the person who creates the content, right?
Right.
So if your expectation is that they need to learn what that means and to take on that role, then I would expect to see problems related to that. And what are the problems related to that might be things like difficulty in making decisions, not having an investment plan, being confused as to where to split their time towards. Feeling overwhelmed is a symptom, but it typically is related to things like, I want to produce more content, but actually not having any way to measure the effectiveness of the content that they are producing. Like, all of these are assumptions, right? And these are assumptions that I would expect to see if indeed the solution could look like learn to be the CEO of your own business. So we need to design an experiment that validates that you see those symptoms.
Yeah. Here's a quick one that I did yesterday, a quick SMIQ, just like a casual. I ask when it comes to, and I ask Kate, when it comes to marketing your e-learning course, because that's the phase we are in, what's your number one challenge right now? So in her words, putting myself out there on the social media networks. That's that's a challenge. So things
Yeah,
like
and
this
this
shows
is
up like that.
okay. So this is interesting. All right, so we need to design an experiment, and the experiment has to do with YouTube and building an audience, right? So, how about this? This is something that has worked for me in the past, so I'm going to suggest this. How about this? You create a video that describes the problem as you see it, right?
Mhm.
And so you use real life examples and you describe this problem. You know, I'm afraid of putting myself out there. I don't know how to generate traffic. I can't measure the effectiveness of the content that I'm producing, whatever those symptoms are. And then you describe the solution as what this means is that you need strategy. You need to learn to be the CEO of your business, not just the person working in the business.
Yeah.
And then you sell that as an opt-in, right? Like
Yeah.
the video is about the struggles and maybe some potential tips on where to go to find solutions. But then at the end of the video, the conclusion needs to be that actually what's happening is that you're not really the CEO of your business. You're just working on the trees and forgetting about the forest, right? And then you give that as an opt-in. If we are right about the symptoms, people will want that. They will want that report, right? Because and we need to use the term that you're using, right? You need to learn to be the CEO of your business. That was the term that you used. So you need to use the term that you have in mind. Now, if we have views and we have opt-ins, then it's validated. Then we know that there is a demand for this. If you have views and you have no opt-ins, then of course it means that you're wrong. That the CEO role is not what they are looking for as a way to solve their business struggles. If you have no views, then we know we need to run some experiments on how to generate views.
Yeah. So that brings me to, we need to also, one of the things I need to do on YouTube is for Kate to restrict myself on few topics in the beginning. So for example, one of the topic is you need to take on the role of CEO. Basically, you need to be able to make better decisions in your business that will serve you. And making a decision to build an audience, in my case, for example, was one such decision. Consciously making a decision that like, hey, I'm gonna prioritize building an audience above making revenue, so that all this time that I have, all the energy I'm putting in thinking should go on building an audience. And that's why we are talking about YouTube rather than creating another product right now.
Absolutely. All right. So next episode, we'll continue to dive into the go on YouTube to develop an audience quest that Ed has started. I think that his last comment is really a brilliant example of what it means to learn to become the CEO of a business, is that you need to make choices that are not necessarily short term, that have a strategy behind. And of course, you need to be clear on what that strategy is. So thank you for sharing that story, Ed, and looking forward to the next set of steps that you take.
Awesome. I enjoyed it. Thanks.